Surah 37. As-Saffat. Context. Period of revelation. The subject matter shows that this surah was probably sent down in the middle or last stage of the Middle Meccan period. The style highlights the raging antagonism and the difficult and discouraging circumstances faced by the Prophet and his companions. The subject matter and theme. The disbelievers of Mecca are warned of their mockery and derision to God's message of monotheism, Tawheed, and the hereafter, and their refusal to acknowledge the Prophet. In the end, they have been plainly warned that the Prophet, whom they are mocking and ridiculing, will overwhelm them in spite of their power and wealth, and they will find the army of God encamping in the very courtyards of their houses.
Verses 171 to 179.
This notice was given at a time when there appeared to be no chance of success for the Prophet's mission. The Muslims who have been called God's army in these verses were under severe persecution. 3/4 of their population had already emigrated, and hardly 40 to 50 of the companions were left with the Prophet in Mecca, helplessly experiencing excessive persecution. Under such circumstances, no one would think that the Prophet and this mere handful of ill-equipped companions would ultimately attain dominance. Rather, people thought that the new movement would be buried in the ravines of Mecca. Despite this, within hardly 15 to 16 years, the conquest of Mecca occurred, the precise thing which the disbelievers had been forewarned about. Along with administering warnings, this surah covers the themes of inducement and instruction in a balanced way. Brief but impressive arguments have been given about the validity of the doctrines of monotheism and the hereafter. Criticism has been made of the creed of the polytheist, showing the absurdity of their beliefs and the evil consequences of their deviations, contrasting this with the splendid results of faith and righteous acts. The most instructive of the historical narratives presented in this surah is from the important life of the Prophet Abraham, and the event where he was ready to sacrifice his only son after receiving inspiration from God. This was a lesson not only for the disbelieving Quraysh who were proud of their blood relationship to him, but also for the Muslims. By narrating this event, they were shown the real spirit of Islam, and how a true believer should be ready to sacrifice his all for the pleasure of God. In these verses, they were given glad tidings and told not be disheartened by their difficulties, for they would eventually attain power against the people of falsehood, who were dominant at the time. A few years later, the turn of events confirmed that this was not an empty promise but an inevitable reality, which had been foretold to strengthen their hearts. Surah 37. As-Saffat. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. By those angels, lined up in rows, and those who drive the clouds, and those who recite the reminder. Indeed your God is one, Lord of the heavens and the earth, and that between them, and Lord of the sunrises. Indeed we have adorned the nearest heaven with an adornment of stars, and as protection against every rebellious devil, so they may not listen to the exalted assembly of angels, and are pelted from every side, repelled, and for them is a constant punishment, except one who snatches some words by theft, but they are pursued by a burning flame, piercing in brightness. Then inquire of them, O Muhammad, are they a stronger or more difficult creation, or those others we have created? Indeed we created them, men, from sticky clay. But you wonder, while they mock, and when they are reminded, they remember not. And when they see a sign, they ridicule and say, this is naught but obvious magic. When we have died and become dust and bones, are we indeed to be resurrected? And our forefathers as well? Say, yes, and you will be rendered contemptible. It will be only one shout, and at once they will be observing. They will say, oh woe to us, this is the day of recompense. They will be told, this is the day of judgment which you used to deny. The angels will be ordered, gather those who committed wrong, their kinds, and what they used to worship, other than God, and guide them to the path of hellfire, and stop them, Indeed they are to be questioned. They will be asked, "What is wrong with you? Why do you not help each other?" But they, that day, are in surrender. And they will approach one another asking, blaming, each other. They will say, "Indeed you used to come at us from the right." They, the oppressors, will say, "Rather, you yourselves were not believers. And we had over you no authority, but you were a transgressing people. So the word, decree, of our Lord has come into effect upon us, indeed we will taste punishment. And we led you to deviation, indeed we were deviators." So indeed they, that day, will be sharing in the punishment. Indeed that is how we deal with the criminals. Indeed they, when it was said to them, "There is no deity but God," were arrogant and were saying, "Are we to leave our gods for a mad poet?" Rather, he, the prophet, has come with the truth and confirmed the previous messengers. Indeed you disbelievers will be tasters of the painful punishment. And you will not be recompensed except for what you used to do, but not the chosen servants of God. Those will have a provision determined, fruits, and they will be honored in gardens of pleasure, on thrones facing one another. There will be circulated among them a cup of wine from a flowing spring, white and delicious to the drinkers. No bad effect is there in it, nor from it will they be intoxicated. And with them will be women, limiting their glances, with large beautiful eyes, as if they were delicate eggs, well protected. And they will approach one another, inquiring of each other. A speaker among them will say, "Indeed I had a companion on earth," who would say, "Are you indeed of those who believe that when we have died and become dust and bones, we will indeed be recompensed?" He will say, "Would you care to look?" And he will look and see him in the midst of the hellfire. He will say, "By God, you almost ruined me. If not for the favor of my Lord, I would have been of those brought into hell." Then, are we not to die except for our first death, and we will not be punished? Indeed this is the great attainment. For the like of this, let the workers, on earth, work. Is that paradise better as hospitality, or the tree of Zaqqum? Indeed we have made it a torment for the wrongdoers. Indeed it is a tree issuing from the bottom of the hellfire, its emerging fruit as if it was heads of the devils. And indeed they will eat from it, and fill with it their bellies. Then indeed they will have after it a mixture of scalding water. Then indeed, their return will be to the hellfire. Indeed they found their fathers astray. So they hastened to follow in their footsteps. And there had already strayed before them most of the former peoples, and we had already sent among them warners. Then look how was the end of those who were warned, but not the chosen servants of God. And Noah had certainly called us, and we are the best of responders. And we saved him and his family from the great affliction. And we made his descendants, those remaining, on the earth, and left for him favorable mention among later generations, peace upon Noah, among the worlds. Indeed we thus reward those who strive for excellence. Indeed he was of our believing servants. Then we drowned the others, disbelievers. And indeed among his kind was Abraham, when he came to his Lord with a sound heart, and when he said to his father and his people, "What do you worship? Is it falsehood as gods other than God you desire? Then what is your thought about the Lord of the worlds?" And he cast a look at the stars, and said, "Indeed I am about to be ill." So they turned away from him, departing. Then he turned to their gods and said, "Do you not eat? What is wrong with you that you do not speak?" And he turned upon them a blow with his right hand. Then they, the people, came toward him hastening. He said, "Do you worship that which you yourselves carve, while God created you and that which you do?" They said, "Construct for him a structure, furnace, and throw him into the burning fire." And they intended for him a plan, harm, but we made them the most debased. And then he said, "Indeed I will go to where I am ordered by my Lord, he will guide me. My Lord, grant me a child from among the righteous." So we gave him good tidings of a forbearing boy. And when he reached with him the age of exertion, he said, "O my son, indeed I have seen in a dream that I must sacrifice you, so see what you think." He said, "O my father, do as you are commanded. You will find me, if God wills, of the steadfast." And when they had both submitted, and he put him down upon his forehead, we called to him, "O Abraham, you have fulfilled the vision. Indeed we thus reward those who strive for excellence." Indeed this was the clear trial. And we ransomed him with a great sacrifice, and we left for him favorable mention among later generations, peace upon Abraham. Indeed we thus reward those who strive for excellence. Indeed he was of our believing servants. And we gave him good tidings of Isaac, a prophet from among the righteous, and we blessed him and Isaac. But among their descendants are those who strive for excellence, and those who are clearly unjust to themselves. And we did certainly confer favor upon Moses and Aaron. And we saved them and their people from the great affliction. And we supported them, so it was they who overcame. And we gave them the explicit book, the Torah, and we guided them on the straight path. And we left for them favorable mention among later generations, peace upon Moses and Aaron. Indeed we thus reward those who strive for excellence. Indeed they were of our believing servants. And indeed Elias was from among the messengers, when he said to his people, "Will you not fear God? Do you call upon Baal, and leave the best of creators, God, your Lord, and the Lord of your first forefathers?" And they denied him, so indeed they will be brought for punishment, except the chosen servants of God. And we left for him favorable mention among later generations, peace upon Elias. Indeed we thus reward those who strive for excellence. Indeed he was of our believing servants. And indeed Lot was among the messengers. So mention when we saved him and his family, all, except an old woman, his wife, among those who remained with the evildoers. Then we destroyed the others. And indeed you passed by them, in the morning and at night. Then will you not use reason? And indeed Jonah was among the messengers. Mention when he ran away to the laden ship. And he drew lots, and was among the losers. Then the fish swallowed him, while he was blameworthy. And had he not been of those who exalt God, he would have remained inside its belly, until the day they are resurrected. But we threw him onto the open shore, while he was ill. And we caused to grow over him a gourd vine. And we sent him to his people of 100,000 or more. And they believed. So we gave them enjoyment of life for a time. So inquire of them, O Muhammad, does your Lord have daughters while they have sons? Or did we create the angels as females, while they were witnesses? Surely, it is out of their invented falsehood that they say, God has begotten, and indeed they are liars. Has he chosen daughters over sons? What is wrong with you? How do you make judgment? Then will you not be reminded? Or do you have a clear authority? Then produce your book, if you should be truthful. And they have claimed, between him and the jinn, a lineage. But the jinn have already known, that they who made such claims will be brought to punishment. Exalted is God, above what they describe, except the chosen servants of God who do not share in that sin. So indeed you disbelievers in whatever you worship, you cannot tempt anyone away from him, except he who is to enter and burn in the hellfire. The angels say, there is not among us any, except that he is a known position, and indeed we are those who line up for prayer. And indeed we are those who exalt God. And indeed they, the disbelievers, used to say, if we had a message from those of the former peoples, we would have been the chosen servants of God. But they disbelieved in it, so they are going to know. And our word, decree, has already proceeded for our servants, the messengers, that indeed they would be those given victory, and that indeed our soldiers will be victorious. So O Muhammad, leave them for a time, and see what will befall them, for they are going to see. Then for our punishment they are trying to hasten? But when it descends in their territory, then evil is the morning of those who were warned. And leave them for a time, and see, for they are going to see. Exalted is your Lord, the Lord of might, above what they describe. And peace upon the messengers. And praise to God, Lord of the worlds.